Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It is the Metal Summit here on Facebook Live, your place to be every Wednesday night for all things rock, all things metal. We are being joined to you by myself, Jay, with Angel, with Jason. Psycho Steve and Bobby Dreyer needed to take a little bit of time, so we're going to get everything started off with you this evening. And unfortunately, we are bringing this episode to you in a little bit of a somber tone. A little bit of sadness has been going on over the last couple of days with the loss of the great Eddie Van Halen to throat cancer a couple of days ago. So we were doing this special episode tonight specifically for Eddie to just kind of reminisce about Van Halen, about the music, his guitar playing style, and everything that we really came to love and admire about him. So Angel, why don't I kick it right over to you, man? What do you remember about Van Halen, your introduction to Van Halen?
Man, my introduction was, 1983, when Jump was all over MTV. And just kind of, it was kind of keyboard oriented, but you just loved Eddie's playing. Panama, Hot for Teacher. Those songs were my introduction to Van Halen. It hasn't sunk in yet that Eddie Van Halen is no longer with us. It's almost like I'm waiting to wake up and tell you guys, hey, I had a dream that this happened. But the memories is just the music. Like I said, I never got to see them in concert, never got to meet them. I just got to know them through the music, and all of us are music fans, and we get to know these artists by reading about them on interviews, seeing how the stuff that they actually go through. So we know the cancer thing, he was going through it, and that kind of stopped him from touring. That's what was supposed to happen, but the music lives on. I know a lot of us will play the music loud, open up a beer, and just reminisce about his legacy, his music, and his life. And like I said, my heart goes out to his family because while we're mourning the loss of a musician, they're mourning the loss of a father, a husband, uncle, brother. So my heart goes out to everybody in the Van Halen family. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. And thank you for allowing him to sharing him with us.
Absolutely, 100%. Jason, how about you, man? What were some of your earliest memories of being introduced to Van Halen? That's fair.
Hmm.
No. Yeah, no, absolutely. When it comes to that kind of stuff, is really not a lot you can really say when it comes to the loss of somebody. Just like you said, just like Angel said, our thoughts and prayers and condolences, of course, go out to Valerie and go out to Wolfgang, and of course, David, Sammy, Michael, and of course, Alex. And even to a certain degree, Gary Sharon, who did a record with Van Halen as well. Like for me, I was fortunate to see the band live. I didn't get to meet Eddie myself, but like so much other like music at that time, like that was coming out in the 80s and stuff like that, like, they were part of my introduction to like hard rock music. They were also part of like my introduction to girls. Like the fact of the matter is those 80s hard rock videos, those glam videos mixed with like 80s slasher horror movies are exactly how I learned about girls. And there was just so much that Van Halen brought to the table, from their stage presence starting in the 70s, all the way up to somebody like David fronting the band and really putting the show in the show. And but then you mix that and complement it with somebody like Eddie, who's, hammerback style of playing, along with his showmanship, his musicianship, was something that had really just never been seen or done at the time. I mean, you can talk all you want about, like, the people, the kids that got into Kiss, and wanting to learn those songs, the kids that got into like Motley Crue wanting to learn those songs, Poison, all that other stuff. But, alone, the instrumental song Eruption alone, you could write half a book on, because while you have all these other amazing bands that influence just so many musicians, so many youngsters and stuff like that, you didn't really have people like training their guitar chops on things like Shout at the Devil, on things like Shout It Out Loud, or Rock and Roll All Night. They were listening to things like Eruption. They were trying to learn that kind of style. There's tons of documented interviews with the bands where the guys knew that Eddie was something special, and that they used to have him play his solos with his back to the crowd, just so that the up and coming guitar players wouldn't see what Eddie is doing. And that alone is just incredible, that even a band like that at that age realized what they had in a player like Eddie. From Van Halen to Van Halen 2, I mean, Diver Down, 1984, up through, working with Sammy. All that stuff is just, it's absolutely incredible work. And, just like you said, Jason, like, cancer sucks. I've had situations in my own family. We did a tribute as part of a previous episode that we did when we lost Frankie Banali of Quiet Riot. And, just to lose these guys that a lot of people would really still consider to be, quite young. I mean, these guys, yeah, you might look at something where like, yeah, Eddie was 65, Steve and Bobby are the elders of like our group and stuff like that. And I'm like, I guess like the young cat of like the group. But you always kind of get that vibe, that feeling that like, everybody was like the same plane. Everybody's on the same level. Like you can just kind of understand that. And the other thing that was also kind of incredible when it came to Van Halen is they were one of the bands that honestly made like playing covers cool, because you look at stuff like, You Got Me and, Pretty Woman became pretty iconic Van Halen songs. You Really Got Me and Pretty Woman became pretty iconic Van Halen songs, considering that they were covers. And stuff like that is just, it's rare to have a catalog such as theirs that's so iconic that everybody loves, mixed with songs that aren't theirs that people definitely like, you know, they think of Van Halen when it comes to those kind of songs. But Angel, man, let me kick it up to you, man. And do we have any word from any of our metal summoners?
Got Jackie says, "Hi guys, Dawn. Thank you for this, and thank you guys for watching. Again, as we celebrate uh, life. I mean, in general, when we do the Metal Summit, it's always a celebration of life, a celebration of the music, where we celebrate the musicians. Looking back at one of our earlier episodes with Steve Lukather, we got the chance to really talk to him about getting Van Halen into to play the solo in the song Thriller.
Sure.
So, and again, it's outside of Van Halen, but you listen to that solo and you know it's Eddie.
Yeah.
You might other Michael Jackson songs with solos. You listen to it and it's unrecognizable, but Eddie, he had a certain style that you can just know that's Eddie Van Halen right away. And that's amazing because with a guitar player, I'm not a guitarist myself, but he just has something about him that was just recognizable. And to be successful with two singers, like normally when bands change singers, not to put Journey on the spot, but they kind of look for a certain sound. Van Halen, when they, with Sammy Hagar, they got somebody that was completely different than Dave, and they still continued on. People also fail to realize Eddie was also a keyboard player, because we know that on the 1984 albums and 5150, he kind of dabbled into that. Again, he's known for mainly the guitars, but
absolutely. Because you even think about songs like "Beat It," with that trademark, solo involved in that song as well. But I mean, you bring up a really good point when it comes to Van Halen, even possibly being more successful with Sammy and the band. And that probably also has a little bit to do with the changing of the times and stuff like that, because the fact of the matter is when they had Sammy in the band with his writing style, Sammy brought in love songs. And, he really brought in a type of music that wasn't just to the hard rock, like guys type of crowd. It really kind of transcended to suddenly you had Van Halen songs that could be heard on pop radio and bring in that kind of a crowd, and stuff why can't this be love and things like that. So, and Jason, you mentioned being a Van Hagar fan. I mean, talk a little bit about Sammy as the frontman in Van Halen, and what you liked about that particular genre.
Well, yeah, I'm
or era.
definitely lean more towards Van Hagar.
I got a question for you, Jason, about
Sure.
that when you finish.
Oh yeah. No, I'm just. What's interesting is I think when Sammy he joined the band, it was it kind of set them into a different direction. I mean, it was the same goal, but it was a different direction than they were going. I feel. With David Lee Roth, I think a lot of the music that they produced with David Lee Roth is good. I'll admit that it's good. I listen to it when it comes on. The only thing that I find odd about it is that David brought a sense of a showman to it, and it's almost like David was writing and performing for theater more than music. And
oh, that's fair. For sure.
He was like it was like a live Broadway show performance when they went on tour, and that's just how I interpret it. And then when Sammy came in, it got a little bit more heavier. It kind of changed with the times, like you said, Jay. And and I don't know, that kind of appeals a little bit to me more. And what's really cool about all these transitions that they've gone through, especially them switching lead singers a lot. Don't forget about Karabi. But
That was Motley Crue, buddy. I think you're
oh
thinking of
shoot,
Sharon.
my bad. All right, scratch that.
Gary Sharon.
Yeah. Gary Sharon. That's
That's
it.
all right.
I just what Angel, what did you want to ask?
No, do you have a favorite Van Hagar album or song?
I don't really play favorites.
Oh.
Right on.
I kind of listen to everything as they are and take them for what they are. And I mean, it's what's strange is all the songs that are played, let's say on rotation of the radio, is more David Lee Roth Van Halen songs, which it's kind of rare to hear a Sammy Hagar song on rotation on the radio these days. Even though that I think that they got bigger with him than with David Lee Roth.
Yeah. No, they definitely did. And the one thing that's actually kind of funny though, but with the little, name miscue right quick, but still is the fact that it's really, it's really kind of important actually to point something like that out, because the thing is, Sammy Hagar coming into Van Halen isn't actually that far off from when Karabi did come into Motley Crue. Because just like you said, you had David Lee Roth, who was the showman, where it was really the band putting together songs to work with his lyrics, but he was still going to be in the forefront of being David Lee Roth. Very similar to Vince Neil, who idolized, David Lee Roth, where, Nicky wrote the songs, the band put together the songs, and Vince fronted the band. But then you had Karabi come in, who could legitimately play guitar, who was a legitimate songwriter, who could sit down and work with the band. And I think that was definitely something that Sammy Hagar definitely brought into Van Halen that for sure worked with Eddie, is you had another accomplished guitar player that was going to be able to bounce music off each other and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that was very, very cool, that I really dug on that, because one of the things I've always said is, look, I love David Lee Roth's solo stuff. I love Sammy Hagar's solo stuff. But I've always tended to be a little bit more of a Sammy guy when it came to his solo stuff, because for me, it always felt like David Lee Roth was trying to do Van Halen without Van Halen, because that's what he knew. And then you had Sammy, who was always Sammy first and foremost. And for fans that actually don't know this story, and one of the things that's actually very cool is Sammy got into it got in contact with Eddie Van Halen because of their love of cars. They both used the same mechanic when they were getting all their expensive vehicles and stuff like that all tuned up, because they had their split with David Lee Roth, and it was the mechanic that was like, hey, I've worked on cars for this guy Sammy Hagar, you should bring him into the band. And that's one of the things that was going on, and one of the ways that he definitely got in there. And just to let the fans know, we have been joined by Bobby Dreyer. We're getting everything fixed up real good there. Jason, whenever Bobby's ready and queued in, go ahead and you can speak right in so we can get him involved. But Angel, why don't you jump in, brother? Talk a little bit about, you know what? Why don't you talk a little bit about your opinion of the transition from David Lee Roth to Sammy Hagar?
I think what I like about the transition is that they did not go out and get a copycat of David Lee Roth. They simply went out and just got somebody that was different. It was kind of strange for me because, again, you're a kid. You're discovering Van Halen for the first time. You're loving Van Halen. And suddenly they get a new singer. And you're like, this is kind of weird. Because my first time experiencing a lineup change. And I'm like, does this really happen? Did they, because you're looking at like Def Leppard that year and some of these other bands, and Van Halen just changing the singer. It was just awkward to me. But as I grew into a teenager, I really started loving the Van Hagar. And I guess that's the one that I kind of grew up on. I know other fans that are older will always love the early stuff, like Unchained, Dance the Night Away, and those songs. But it's something that could have easily killed them. They could have gone out with Sammy Hagar and played to have empty arenas. They could have not sold as many records. But they made sure that they had it right with the songs on that 5150 album. I still love listening to that record. I was listening to it today, and it's still a great album. It's a great piece of music, from start to finish. I love Best of Both Worlds. I still play that one really loud.
For sure. What was your take on an album like Van Halen 3? Did you think it was did you think it was Alex and Eddie kind of trying to rekindle or maybe trying to resurrect something that had died, or do you think it was more about keeping the Van Halen flame alive?
On that one, when I first heard it, when I first heard the first side of Van Halen 3, I remember thinking this sounds kind of like a Journey album because it wasn't really hard hitting. It just lacked kind of packing punch there. I mean, I love the song Without You. They came out with a great first single, but I was just kind of confused on that album for some reason. I mean, Gary Cherone, he's a great singer. I love him to death, but it was just like a weird album to me.
Gotcha. When it came to Angel, when it came to Journey, the Journey reference, do you mean Extreme?
No, to me, like the first side just kind of sounded like a Journey album.
Oh, it just came across
where they just where Eddie just, it wasn't packing punch. Like you kind of listen to the Van Hagar, the early stuff, and it packs punch.
Gotcha. I got you, man. No, for sure. Well, we still got Jason, we still got Bobby. We're getting everything fixed up. So Bobby, hang with us, brother. We're definitely going to get you in here, man. Absolutely, for sure.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can definitely hear you. I've got the show up on my phone. I just don't see you yet.
Yeah, you're on.
I'm just not totally. Oh, cool, man. Well then, Bobby, let's bring you right in, man. Thank you so much, man. And talk a little bit about, Eddie, your earliest memories, your fondest memories, and dive right into it, brother.
79 Christmas at a buddy's house, walks in, and I'm looking at this album. He goes, we're all big Kiss fans. So the biggest thing we see on the back, oh, wow, Gene Simmons. So I'm like, plop the needle down, and you hear this car horn. You're going, where the hell's this going? All of a sudden, Eruption comes on.
Yeah.
And I sit there, and me just goes, what the hell is that? And by the end of the song, and going right into Running with the Devil, and you're just like, who the hell plays guitar like that? And how many hands are on that fretboard? And
Yeah.
you know, and how's he doing that? And what's he doing? And, you know, nothing. You never heard anything like that, because you got to figure we were just coming out of the punk thing, the Ramones, disco.
Yeah.
You know, it was the whole disco thing. The hardest thing I think we had out was, you know, we were leaving the edge of Nugent and everything, and it was coming into new wave. So you had the Cars album that just came out that year. Who the hell else? Just, you know, ELO was really big, but you know there was, and then there was nothing. Nobody was really into hair bands, and Angel was saying about transitioning of different singers. Well, that year was the year almost when Ozzy left Sabbath and
Yep.
Dio came in. And it was like right around, I think Ozzy was just right on his way out, the Never Say Die album. And, you know, so you were getting ready to do a transition into Mob Rules with Sabbath. And nobody knew how to take that either. Nobody knew who the hell, you know, really, unless you were a Rainbow fan, you didn't know who Dio was. But these four guys come out at a period of time where you know, I think Queen was big back then. The Game album was just out.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this plops, and whoa,
Yeah.
game changer.
We were talking about it earlier where, like, you know, you didn't have, you know, no disrespect to those bands, but you didn't have you didn't have the amount of like kids learning guitar to Kiss songs, learning guitar to Queen songs, learning guitar to Motley Crue songs, like the way kids all of a sudden wanted to learn Eruption. Like, just kids were locking themselves away to teach themselves that.
Well, it was an iconic sound. It was almost, you know, we all remember and respect Hendrix, but that wasn't our era. So you got to figure, here comes this guy who is kind of our Hendrix, our Clapton, our Jimmy Page. You know, we got into Zeppelin and that, and a lot of us got into Zeppelin and that because from Eddie, we kind of went backwards on things. I mean, I liked Zeppelin, but I really got into what Eddie was listening to, and then, you know, really just opened me up to different things. And I thought the cool thing about Van Halen was, and not to knock AC/DC, love every time, and you know, let's give a big shout out today. You know, the Power Up. You know, big horns up for Angus and the boys putting that out. I'm excited about November 13th. You know that but every time a new Van Halen album came out, it was almost like Christmas or your birthday or whatever. You're like, you didn't know what to expect. And again, you got to give a shout out. Part of that was Dave. You never knew how you were getting from Dave. You know, I mean, the guy was totally always on 10. He never turned it down, whether it was doing an interview or, you know, it was kind of our rock and roll Donald Trump.
To a certain degree, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, please, Angel.
No, I got a question for you, Bobby. Again, at that time, you had Jimmy Page, who was at the time like the great guitar player. Did you notice that with guitar players locally that were picking up and playing a guitar, did you see a shift of guys wanting to be Jimmy Page and Joe Perry to wanting to be Eddie Van Halen suddenly when they came out?
Well, the neat thing is, you know, you look at Joe Perry, Jimmy Page, everybody's playing back then was based on the blues. It was, 1-4-5. It was, everybody was very similar. And, let's be honest, they took all their stuff from the black man. Eddie comes along and goes, where the hell did he get this from? Nobody was doing tapping or, it was there or people were trying it, but nobody was doing kind of what he did, going from playing rhythm to a solo to a lick. Everything was, Aerosmith was 2 guitar, bass songs. Page was Page, it was, but Eddie came out and it was like, wow, I mean, lightning in a bottle. And that's kind of rare. We were at a great point in our life. I think, being 100 years old, nobody held our attention like Eddie did. And you got to figure, look, here's a guitarist who's not just a rock guy, but when you have somebody iconic like Michael Jackson going, I need him, there would be no Michael Jackson, I think, if there wasn't no Eddie Van Halen. There's no way he would have got the longevity or whatever if it wasn't for him doing what he did on the Beat It thing. And credit to Steve Lukather too for being all over that album.
No, definitely. Angel brought that up earlier. When we had Steve on the show, he spoke on that, and it's also worth bringing up too. I mean, because Eddie's impact, it transcended into other forms of pop culture. I mean, the whole rock community, for a little bit of fun and love, had been talking about, the new Bill and Ted movie that came out last month. And not counting the very first scene with Rufus, George Collins' character, just talking about the future. The first scene of the movie is Bill and Ted blowing out their amps and then talking about how their band's not going to be good enough until they have Eddie Van Halen on guitar. And then they ended the movie by saying, maybe it's time we get Eddie Van Halen.
It's funny you brought up all the movie references and everything. You look at everything from the Minions to going back to, what is it, John Cryer's film with Better Off Dead, when you have the hamburger.
Yeah. The movie The Wildlife. He did the soundtrack to that one.
That, and what the heck was the other one where the wedding singer, where his ex-girlfriend comes out and has the Van
Halen t-shirt. Get out of my t-shirt before you jinx the band and they break up.
But it's all that, and how funny that everything goes back to a reference.
Yeah.
2.5 Men. Yep. We're yelling at him upstairs. It's just funny how relevant. And then you look at, how can we forget Valerie Bertinelli?
Absolutely.
20-year-old Valerie Bertinelli goes to a concert, the girl from Delaware winds up marrying Ed.
Yeah. Seriously. It's crazy with all that stuff. And one thing we, of course, have to talk about when we're talking about references, we got to talk about the Eddie Van Halen stripes. I mean, there's the black and yellow version, there's the black and white version, and of course there's the black, red, and white version. Like, you've seen that thing everywhere. You've seen it on, from clothes to shoes to decorating stuff. Yeah. Let alone the fact that there are still people out there now like Steve Brown from Trickster, who's an alumnus of this show, who when he's playing with Rubik's Cube, plays a version of Eddie Van Halen's guitar.
So here's that. Well, getting back to Steve, it was August 24th. You know, I'm very fortunate to be really good friends. I was trying to get him on tonight, Adam Reaver, but Adam is probably one of Ed's best friends and business partner. Adam was the developer of the D-tuner, which Eddie uses on every guitar, which drops your low E string down to a D.
D, yeah.
Owns a company, FU-Tone. Adam's best friend, Matt, was Ed's guitar tech. So, but the last show in Philadelphia, I was with Buddy Blanche, who's the lead singer of Romeo Delight, Van Halen tribute band in the area here. Was with Adam, Melissa, Adam's fiance, Steve Brown, at the last Van Halen show at Camden.
Yeah, I was at that show too, Bobby.
Yeah, I was just, I'm looking at the pictures and, and I wound up finding things before that with dinner, and I go, man, my first Van Halen show was Diver Down? I think Diver Down or Fair Warning Tour was first one in Philly. Blew my door, and again, I remember seeing all the lights. I remember being at the show in Philly when they shot the Panama video.
Yeah.
And did it 4 times. And I was like, what the hell are they playing the song four times? But then the first shows with Sammy in '86 in Philadelphia, I was just recording at David Ivory's studio with Walt Laffey from Silvertide. I was at their Silvertide show in 2012 when they opened up for Van Halen in Philadelphia. And it's, gosh, you could put a Van Halen album on, and I don't know what it's almost like smells. You can remember parts or where you were in your life when that came out, or when you heard, certain songs. I remember that. Oh, it brings me back to this.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy too. I mean, because also, let alone his talent, his ability for tapping, the way he just shreds. We can't, we mentioned the legendary Stripes, but just the guitar, his guitar alone took on its own life. I mean, we're all combinations of guitarists and bass players. And, the fact of the matter is, this guy's known for a Frankenstrat guitar that he put together like what seemed like out of pieces from an old refrigerator to get like that kind of tone. And it's really incredible because making your own guitar isn't necessarily a new thing. I mean, there's a lot of the old like blues guitarists that were doing that kind of stuff. But having somebody like Eddie Van Halen, customizing, such an iconic guitar out of like spare parts, and then having it really on the forefront of the stage, especially when MTV hit, is pretty insane because that guitar is as recognizable as he is.
I got a question for Bobby. It's kind of like similar to what Jay asked me. Your thoughts on the transition when it went from Sammy Hagar to Gary Cherone?
Like the way I asked, though, like the way I said it to Angel was also along the lines of like, did you feel it was them trying to, keep something that was dead, or did you think it was more about, keeping Van Halen alive and continuing on?
That thing was, gosh, when, just like when Van Halen came out, I remember hearing the first Extreme album, and Nuno just kicked my butt across the stage. You know, it was just everything on there, his solos and everything else. But when Gary came in, I remember being at the show at the Spectrum in Philly. And it was the first Van Halen show I ever went to and went, wow, it's only half full in here.
Oh, wow.
And it was interesting because that tour was Van Halen and Def Leppard, and which was really, it was the Adrenalized thing. And I was just like, you know, nobody was really into Def Leppard then, but really nobody was into, you know, that Van Halen. I mean, it's not to discredit, like Angel said, discredit Gary, but and Angel said it best. Sammy didn't try to be Dave. Here you had Gary. Okay, how do you don't only even have an album under your belt? Now you got to try to be two different singers, three different singers.
Yeah.
And try to win over a crowd.
So here's my next question for you, Bobby. Gary Sharon said, if we had gone out on tour first and then gone out to do the album might have gotten more positive reception. What do you think about that? Do you think if they had gone out on tour first and then done the album, do you think that would have helped the record?
No, I think everybody, you know, because look, we remember when 5150 came out, and you kind of it's almost like MAGA people and everything. You know, you had the Dave camp, and then you had the Sam camp. You know, you had the Van people, and then you had the Dave people. Oh, you know, everybody was, you know, well, Sammy didn't want to be Dave. You know, they went out, but I think the party felt like the party ended with that, and sometimes it's almost like being when somebody they're at a party too long. It's like, dude, you need to know when to get out. And it wasn't to discredit Ed, but it was like you're trying to push a boulder uphill.
Yeah. No, I can definitely get that. Like, Jason, let me bring you in for just a second, bud. Like, you talked about being a Sammy Hagar guy. What do you remember about Sammy leaving the band and Gary coming into the band? Did you have much of an opinion or feels on that, or did the loss of Sammy kind of check you out of the band?
Well,
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Honestly, when that transition occurred, I was not aware of it.
Okay.
That's something that I've learned later. But knowing that the transition occurred, I never really dove into Gary's version of Van Halen. I can't really answer that question, honestly.
That's cool. That's all right.
You know, it's kind of like what Bobby was saying about how when correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby, but it's like when Sammy Hagar came in, it was like you had two different crowds, and some people transferred over and some people didn't. That happens a lot with bands that change members, especially the singer. And all I could say about Van Halen is that they're the most successful group that I'm aware of that has changed their lead singer. It's very rare that any other band has come close. Usually their careers kind of wash up or kind of go in a different direction once they start looking for a different singer. So I give Van Halen a lot of credit for what they did, and they were able to do it successfully.
Yeah, comparison there. I think the only biggest album you really can compare that to, and again, it wasn't because of a singer leaving on his own, has to be going with, and I'll use the reference going to 1980 when Brian Johnson came in to AC/DC, and when Back in Black came out, sounded nothing like Highway to Hell. But oh my, and that was an album that kicked your ass right from the first time you put that needle on to the end, going, whoa, check out. It's. I mean, there's the same thing I mentioned with Sabbath when Ronnie came in, when Mob Rules came out, and songs like Neon Nights and everything. I mean, really changed Sabbath to a different thing. And then bump it up to the 90s when Ian Gillan came into the band and you had the Born Again album. And then it was just kind of like going, it was almost a Gary thing. Are you just trying to hold on to a legacy, or
I got a question from a fan. Kim
Absolutely.
Sullivan. Kim Sullivan, thank you for joining us. She asks, "What about when Eddie asked Patty Smythe to front the band?"
Yeah, I seen the tweet, and the weird thing is yeah, because they kept that on the DL for the longest time.
They did.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want Sammy to know he was the second. And
typical of us guys. Don't worry, baby. You're my first choice. Oh no, you wasn't the second choice.
No.
I think it's kind of interesting that they would go with a female, though. And come on, that was 85. Anything hard rock was turning into a sausage party.
Yeah, it really was.
On the Strip was, male-based, male-driven. You really didn't see that many females running a hard rock band. You can count them probably on one from.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. Joan Jett. I mean, it was cock rock extraordinaire.
Right. I mean, she had that song, "The Warrior," that came out like the year before. So I think that's why. I think maybe her doing that song kind of got him thinking, hey, maybe we should ask her to be in the band.
But can you really picture Patti Smith singing "Hot for Teacher"? Like, that's a weird thing right there.
Gosh, that song got me in so much trouble in school. I can't.
Yeah, as did I. I mean, it kind of reminds me of, like, the cup of coffee that Samantha Maloney spent in Motley Crue, and seeing her behind the drum kit playing "Girls, Girls, Girls." I mean, it's got that's a weird scene.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. And with jumping around, and Motley was changing when Karabi came into the band.
Yeah, totally.
Look, I'm not going to discredit. There's some great. Hooligan's Holiday is just an ass.
Oh, so good.
But it's not a Crue tune.
Nope.
But let's even laugh. How about the last M3 show with Vince? Ooh, which just. I mean, that was just.
I love Vince, man. I truly do. But that one hurt me.
There's certain things I will never say I've seen a bad Sammy show. I've never seen Sammy go out and not give 100%. Now, the clips before Dave went on the road with Kiss, I was really nervous at the Allentown show, thinking, is this guy going to pull it off? And, I'm at PP&L and I'm staying there, and I got to hear Dave do the sound check. I'm like going, well, he's sounding great. And I got to say that, I'm very fortunate that we got to see Dave with Kiss open up, David Lee Roth open and pull off probably one of the best Dave shows I've ever seen.
I got a question for Bobby. Did you get to see the 2002 tour with both Sam and Dave together?
Yeah, I seen it at Kingston.
What are your thoughts on that tour? I think they should do another one, or
no, I don't know. No. I think the bad thing was everybody knows that there was Dave was having a hard time back then, and Sammy and Mike were together. They were doing their thing, and it was. I think that was another ego problem where some people. Dave didn't need to prove anything, but I think he tried to prove something, and Sammy said it enough. They tried to go out. They tried to do X, Y, and Z, but it was. There's a lot of guitar, and both of them are very fortunate. Vic, who plays with Sammy, does a wonderful job of playing the Van Halen tunes. Dave had a lot of great players with him. Everybody from Jason Becker to Steve Vai to oh gosh, who the heck else did he have in the band? But he's had
Billy Sheehan, dude.
Well, but Sheehan, but I meant guitar player wise.
Oh, guitar players, yeah.
Yeah, who played with them and did a lot of things. It was a lot of people can do the Eddie thing, but man, it was when they did the last tour together. There's nothing like hearing Dave's voice, and it was just like the classic hit with that voice and that lineup, and Alex on the drums, and even Wolfie on the bass. Look, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree there.
Yeah, which is true, but it's also kind of funny because you got to remember they David Lee Roth followed up Steve Vai with Jason Becker and followed up Jason Becker with John Five. And John Five's like one of the most honest, open, like, dude, like Eddie's my guy. So you knew that back then, like John Five playing with David Lee Roth and probably slamming some of those tunes was very exciting.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Let's. I posted Rick Beato did a thing about he took the solo part of Stairway to Heaven and said, "Oh, what if Eddie Van Halen and Jimmy Page and Eric Johnson and whatever did the solo and did it in their style? Would it still sound like?" I'm going. Everybody has their own style.
Yeah.
But there's only one Ed. There's just that thing. And again, everybody pointed out, you do the licks, can you do that? Yeah, you can do that. But he had that look. He had that impish grin. He had that look. It was the flying air. It was the spin. It was the, and it was everything. It was everything from the hodgepodge to guitar to the way the unorthodox way he held a pick, the way he played. It was just that. It's kind of like looking at Angus. I don't want to see somebody else going out and trying to do Angus when it's Angus. That's what it is.
Yeah, like just the idea of like seeing somebody like bunny hopping across the stage and with AC/DC that's not Angus would just be so like fucking weird. But that's also one of the things that's interesting too that you brought up when it comes to Eddie's look and his style and his stage performance, because it's crazy well documented. I mean, it was talked about in a one-on-one interview that I did with him, and we even talked about it on this show when he was a guest. Like it's been well documented about how Steve Lynch, when they went out for their first ever tour opening up for Van Halen, that they were told, hey, look, you can't do your tapping style because that's Eddie's thing, despite the fact that allegedly Steve had been doing it longer than Eddie. But Eddie is that stage performer, just like you said, like the spin, the dress, the hair, like, you know, like there's something you want to see about a guy like Eddie doing that tapping style versus a guy like Steve who can do it well, but Eddie is recognizable with that.
Look, we're all the biggest Kiss fans, and all over the last couple of years. And you know, me being involved with the Kiss Room with Matt Porter and everything. Boy, you get the Tommy Thayer haters out there.
Oh, you sure do.
And nothing against Tommy, but again, God, if you listen to a certain person on volume with their show, boy, he totally doesn't want anybody else doing that. That would be somebody saying now, well, we could get somebody else to fill Ed's shoes. I wouldn't want to see Van Halen go out, without anybody in it other than Ed. I think it was kind of like.
Yeah, I could definitely understand that one, for sure. It's like, it's like, it goes back to what you said before. You don't want to see somebody else doing something else. So like, man, you just gotta get it.
It's interesting because Zeppelin, I remember being in high school and hearing Bonham died. And I was like, oh my gosh, they were supposed to play Philly that year. It was going to be my first time ever seeing Zeppelin. And the In Through the Outdoor tour. And I was just like, it said, nope, no more Zeppelin's done.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the top of the hour, and Kim Sullivan has a trivia question for us.
Trivia question.
It's a tough one. Yes, it's a tough one.
We do.
Okay. So Kim Sullivan has a trivia question. Thank you, Kim, for listening. And I'm going to read the trivia question.
Yeah, Kim / Angel, lay it on us.
Who contributed a harmony vocal to thank Eddie for playing guitar on their personal album track? Bonus points for the Van Halen track and album this person contributed to.
Nicolette Larson.
For bonus points, Van Halen track and album.
Oh God, now I really have to think about that one though.
She got us good on that one.
She got us good. I know it's Nicolette Larson though.
Harmony. No, it was his dad did it on one. And I'm trying to think which album. His dad has vocals on the back of on one song.
That has to be the Van Halen 3 album. One?
I think one was Fair Warning.
Oh.
That's a good Kim. If we didn't get it right, I'm going to be interested to hear what Kim has to say about it.
Yeah. Kim, if you want to let us know if we got it right or wrong, but I guess we can thank our wonderful sponsors.
Absolutely. So we gotta start off with that fabulous T-shirt there, Angel.
Yeah.
Who's that?
That's Bradley's.
Right on. Yeah, Bradley Entertainment. And actually on that note, for anybody watching us that is in the Baltimore area or wants to cruise down, I know that tickets are very skimpy right now. If they're not sold out, they are definitely less than 10. But Michael Grant and the Assassins are coming to Baltimore this Friday and Saturday night for what is now the first Bradley Entertainment event of 2020, finally. So we've got Bradley Entertainment with Michael Grant and the Assassins and Adam Baum with the Mathematics playing at Reverb in Baltimore for anybody who wants to check that out. But of course, we always want to thank Mark and Lizzie from Rock and Horror Apparel. They're TMS alumni as well. We love them to death. Levy Metal Enterprises, custom guitars and stage props and of course, Saren Cadaver of Twisted Vines. We thank you guys all so very, very much for participating in us and growing with us as we continue to grow ourselves.
And Jay, you are right.
Oh, boom! Nicolette Larson.
That's the same thing she said. Boom. Jay is right.
Is that really what you said? No.
What's fun?
I didn't mean it. Damn, that's a good question, though.
That is a great question.
Kim, did we get the album right? The song? Can you tell us? I don't have Google in front of me.
Well, yeah, but that's what makes trivia questions fun too. We either get it or we don't.
That's true. I had no clue. I'm like, but that's a fun trivia question.
Now here's a thing. With everybody who's had influence, who do you think is going to be the next? Who's going to, I don't want to say step into Eddie's shoes, but who's going to be that guy? Is it going to be Nuno? Is it going to? Who's going to be that next guy to make history, or is it going to be? We're going to have to wait another generation.
Damn.
Well, we spoke about. I mentioned him early before. If I'm really thinking about it's a really tricky question because when you look at it, like what guitar players are out there right now that garner that kind of attention for doing something, if not new, but different. So here's my thing. I love Nuno to death. I mean, Nuno is fucking amazing, and I can only hope that I can get on the Bobby Dreyer level to where Nuno sends me guitars. And but with you don't see as much of Nuno by himself. Whereas somebody like John Five, even with being part of the Rob Zombie umbrella, the Marilyn Manson umbrella, he's out there constantly doing his solo shows with all these different kinds of guitars, some that have liquid in them, some of them light up, some of them explode, like all this kind of thing. I mean, and then you think about a tour that I saw a few years ago called Generation Axe that had Steve Vai, Zakk Wylde. It had Nuno, but then it also had a guy named Tosin Abasi, who's like an 8-string guitar shredder. He's quite exceptional. He's from out of DC. Fucking Yngwie, and Yngwie was on that tour. So
yeah,
but it's a little tricky using something like that because with the exception of Tosin and Nuno to a certain degree, you've got the other guys that are closer in that age range. With it being like basically Tosin, like by youth, you've got it basically is like, I think it's Tosin, Nuno, Zakk, Yngwie, and Steve. I think that's roughly the order of age when it comes to that. So I don't really necessarily know if I can really give it to those guys because they're so introverted and so connected with what we know is that 80s rock scene and that 90s rock scene, especially with Zakk and Ozzy, that I would have to honestly lean towards somebody like a John Five, who's still a little bit younger, does have that ties with Van Halen already, but really puts something unique in his own show that you will remember. The problem with John Five is he's not really on like the collective conscience of people's minds. I mean, you can talk to music people and be like, hey, what do you think of John Five? And you're probably going to get a fair amount of people who don't know who that is versus somebody like, hey, what do you think of Zakk Wylde? It's at least going to hit their brain.
Right. Oh, it was Could This Be Magic on Women and Children first.
Women and Children last. You go, Kim.
And also thank you to Star Peters for watching. She also said tough shoes to fill. And she's right about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I keep thinking.
Real quick, Bobby, Angel, before you guys continue, I also want to just say this out to the fans, like, just like, Star and Kim, like, hey guys, if you got stuff that you want us to talk about and you want to discuss, sling it right there into the comments so Angel can pick it up. Go ahead, Bobby.
Now, what I was saying with the thing about Ed, and I guess going back to Hendrix and all that, it wasn't male dominated, male driven. Female driven. Jimmy Page had the women coming around. You hear the stories about Hollywood. Same thing with Ed. The thing about Van Halen, it wasn't the guy thing. Dave wanted to keep the party going. When Sammy came in, it was a different change there. But Sammy had a great reputation with having some big iconic hits. I Can't Drive 55, coming off the soundtrack to heavy metal. People knew who he was. So he brought some of that crowd in. He brought some of the Sammy crowd in. And
well, because Sammy also had Montrose under his belt.
Yeah.
That influenced Van Halen in a way.
They were, I don't want to say Van Halen was that safe band that you could bring your girlfriend to a concert.
Oh, no.
But, different, look, Priest even had to tone down, when they started doing their parental guidance stuff. And, when that changed, you seen the audience change. But when it went from a male-dominated crowd to, a bigger, look at Def Leppard.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like, and to our metal summoners as well, I also want to hear about your guys' fondness, memories of Eddie Van Halen. Music videos, did you get to see him live? Were you fortunate to meet him? We would love to hear that.
Star Peter wants to know what are our thoughts on DJ Aspa. That's a good guitar player we didn't mention.
I got plenty I can say about that. Jason, it's been a second for you, brother. Why don't you jump in on that?
Well, I'd love to, but I don't know much.
That's okay. No worries, man. For sure. Angel, why don't you pick it up then, buddy?
Wow, I didn't think about him, but yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, he was in Guns N' Roses. He has that resume. Playing with Nikki Sixx and 6 a.m. You don't get to play with Axl Rose and play with Nikki Sixx unless you really can deliver the goods. Mm-hmm. Because those guys are great songwriters, great musicians.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that one. I actually I love DJ. I've met him a bunch. He's always been great to me. I still to this day, even though the band is back on hiatus, but I was a huge Beautiful Creatures fan, and that was one of DJ's first bands. And
I saw them at Ozfest.
Oh, nice.
I think it was like their first Ozfest or only Ozfest, I think. First show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah, dude. DJ Ashba, Kenny Queens, Joe Lestay, Anthony Fox. Hell yeah, man, for sure. But the problem with DJ is, with the exception of 6 a.m., with the stint he had in Guns N' Roses, he was second fiddle, you know? And he was second fiddle to two other guitar players.
Yeah.
And he's put out some really cool, like, individual stuff. Like, he put out a really cool score soundtrack called DJ Ashba's Goratorium, and I have it, and it's really good. But unfortunately, as much as I love DJ and I would love to see him star, that's a fantastic answer, by the way. As much as I would definitely love to put him in that category, because, man, he's got the chops. He's missing that individuality that John has a slightly more of an edge to. And DJ's going to be even less on people's frontal lobe, in my opinion, than John Fox.
I have a question for you, Jay, about that, and then I'm gonna get to Brian. Do you think that that's what's missing with some of the other guys that we just mentioned, like Johnny Five, the DJ Aspa, is that with Eddie, he kind of had that individual. He was able to have that solo spotlight on him, where people would look at David Lee Roth, but yeah, they would also want to look at how he was playing. Do you think maybe that's the key ingredient that's missing from some of the guitar players mentioned?
It's definitely a key ingredient, but the other thing that really shackles a lot of the current guitar players is what can they do that's new?
Yeah.
Like honestly.
True.
Eddie showed up with a style of playing that had never been done before. So I'd like to see that next that next guitar player who's either right in your face or brings something, whether it's a crazy showmanship or even to a certain degree controversy, you know, to go along with their playing if there's not going to be a way just to play something new.
Here's a homework assignment to the Metal Summit from Brian. The five of you must create and produce a 1980s metal ballad by 2021. Get to work. It must honor Eddie Van Halen's legacy.
I'm down.
Me too.
I'm sitting on lyrics to songs that I've already written. Bobby can play the guitars.
I'll play the drums.
Yeah, we're almost there, and Jason can produce it and play on it.
Who's gonna sing on it?
Psycho?
Yeah, I vote for Psycho to sing on it. Psycho's Steve doing a ballad. Who knows? I mean, he may surprise us and sound like Steve Perry.
Or Rob Halford.
Rob Halford.
I'd like to chime in and bring it back to the
absolutely
bring it back to the next guitarist that of Eddie's stature and position in as a musician. I feel like that it's very hard for modern day guitarists to accomplish something like that. Not because Eddie is hard to top, but think of it this way. Before Eddie, there were various bands in the 70s, like classic rock bands, but ultimately, just like Eddie changed the way the music was of the era, Jimi Hendrix was a big part of the direction that eventually led to Eddie Van Halen. And I feel like Jimi Hendrix is like a slower, rougher, not as outgoing version of Eddie Van Halen, and then the reason why Jimmy and Eddie got to the level that they got to, and I'm sure that if Jimmy lived, he would have gotten a lot farther. But I think it's mainly because of the time that timing was good. In the 60s, it was like rock and roll. You had like it bled into the hippies and folk and make love music, like Flower Children or whatever. And then in the 70s, there was the classic rock, and then of course which led into the 80s with like the hair metal bands and just hard rock '80s hard rock. I think that after in the '90s it changed. The spotlight changed, and guitarists weren't expected to know much about it. I mean, there's a lot of talented musicians that came after the '90s, but they may have been more talented than they led on to be. So because the genre of music, of popularity over time, has changed, and ever since, I mean, there's been string instruments as long as I could remember. Going back into like the 20s or the 30s or the 40s or whatever. But I think when technology started to dive into music, string instruments kind of fell by the wayside, and a lot of the new artists that are influenced by the electronic way of playing music, they're losing that drive to learn like the guitar or something like that, when you can press a button and it'll sound just like a guitar. So I think that because of the evolution of music and the stance at what technically pop music is these days, or has been for probably the last 20 years or 20 plus years, it's very hard for somebody to be able to have an opportunity to get to that level that Eddie Van Halen has. Whereas when he was at his prime with Van Halen, that was considered the pop music of the generation. That was like played everywhere. Where now you have to go to certain outlets or certain radio stations to or internet radio these days to listen to any type of hard rock or metal, or anywhere where any guitarist can show their worth, as opposed to and talent, as opposed to, but if music keeps going the way that it's going, I hate to say it, but I really don't think that that there's going to be a lot of people that would want to give opportunities to these very talented guitarists that are out there. It's
Well,
hard. It's very hard, and I think that might be. I'm not sure what who was it that said that it's hard shoes to fill. I'm not sure if that may have been the reason, but I think that it has a big reason. It has a big part of why it's very hard to fill these shoes.
Yeah, you definitely bring up a lot of really good points there, because the fact of the matter is, as the old saying goes, is a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. But the other thing too is with YouTube, for example, being such a thing nowadays, like you saw these guitar players live back in the day, like, and you got your first like hint of these guys, your first experience of these guys, often right on stage. And that's when you're seeing their style, their performance, their flair. It was like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, where, you know, the rest of Van Halen realized quickly that Eddie was a thing, and would make him play with his back to the crowd so that people couldn't see his playing style. Versus now, you've got these YouTubes out here. You see these quote unquote guitar virtuosos that are shredding in their living room. I'm like, well, yeah, you know, oh, cool, but you're on the other side of a camera. I don't really know what you did or didn't do. I can appreciate that you can play, but it's an auto-tune digital technology world now. And I just don't think that I I want to see you on stage. I want to see you be able to bring it with a crowd. I don't care if there's kind of like a slop factor to it, because that's what rock and roll is all about. But I want to see you trying. I don't want to see you in a controlled environment with where beer bottles aren't being thrown at you, and see you play then. I want to see what you've got, when the heat is on, where people are either going to then go buy your stuff, buy your shirt, or buy your record, or come and see you again the next time you come to town. So it's a tricky slope now for any for there to be any, new big thing. It's it's a that's a long way to swim.
Yeah. The only thing I don't want to turn into is our parents. Because I do have a feeling, though, there is some kid locked in a bedroom right now. And with this, we might not be able to get to see it. But there is going to be somebody that's going to do something, and he's going to change it, because
Right.
it always happens. We were very fortunate with us being our age to grow up in the era of we got to see people like Randy Rhoads. We got to see Eddie. And let's go back to it. Brian May.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who he and his father made his guitar out of his father. So there is some kid doing something like that. It may take a while, but there's going to be something that, it's going to go, okay, that's it. That's the cool thing.
I do
For
agree.
sure.
I
And
do
I don't
agree
wanna
with you,
come off
Bobby. It's funny because I'm thinking that person already exists and already is in the spotlight, and he's slowly hinting at transitions back to rock and roll, and um and that thereof similar genres. The guy's name is Post Malone. So he's like, I don't even know what you would call him, like hip hop or something like that, or not hip hop. I don't know, whatever. But
Yeah, I mean,
whatever the music is
the
these
one
days, but when he goes out and he performs on stage, he does his songs, he does his music, but then he'll bring out his acoustic guitar and he'll play like Metallica, or I don't know, Alice in Chains, or whoever he plays. So he's like reintroducing these people on a very large level to his roots. And it's very rare. Like, usually people will stick with playing their music and it's all about them, and then they do the show and then they leave. But he is one of the rare people where he's introducing the new generation to his generation of music even earlier than that too. And then on top of that, he had an opportunity to do a song with Ozzy. And I don't think that went over well, though, but I feel like he is part of the transition that you're talking about. But I'm not sure if it's going to kick over into high gear with him, or with the current generation that is listening to the new music. But you're right. He might influence somebody. He might influence somebody that maybe in 5 or 10 years might do it better and reach farther. But that's my take on that. That's why.
Yeah, what I get on that. I getting back to Ed. I just want to say how grateful we all are to look. We feel the loss, but I really am thankful for being old enough to be there from the beginning. And I got to see the whole thing, from start to finish, from the MTV to this. I got to enjoy and will continue to enjoy it, have the things. But there is going to be somebody, and I don't think it's going to happen till live music comes back.
Yeah.
The great thing is there is somebody doing something right now. It might not be here, it might be, but something's going to pop. It's going to be like a pimple, man. It's just going to come to a head and, whoa, where the hell did that come from? It might be another genre change. We don't know. It might be something, typical like when the Beatles started or whatever. I think something's going to come out of this pandemic that's going to really freak us the heck out. It might be a new genre that comes out and going, okay, I just don't want to be my parents and be null to it, numb to it and go, study music, bullshit. Well,
No, and that I can definitely, I'm definitely with you on that, Bobby, for sure. Because I don't want to come across as like an ogre being like, yeah, I don't really think these kids have a chance. I just think that I do think though that live is key. But there are definitely musicians out there that I give credit to because they are giving fans the opportunities to test things out. I go to Steel Panther regularly. They love bringing people up on stage for like guitar battles with Satchel. I've seen Dave Grohl do it at the Foo Fighter concerts.
Yeah.
I've seen it with I went and saw Blink 182 last year, and they brought up a kid to play one of their songs and stuff like that on guitar. And there's definitely some transcending genre type stuff. I mean, this guy, Machine Gun Kelly, who just played Tommy Lee in the Dirt, who is known as like a rapper, now he's putting out like a pop punk album, and I've heard a couple of the songs on it, and honestly, it's not bad. I mean, it's not my top thing, but I've always had a soft spot for pop punk, like what I call mall punk and stuff like that. I've always had a soft spot for that kind of stuff because it has some little fits of glam to it that just kind of reminds me of. But so I definitely think, like what Jason was saying, there's definitely room for like that crossing genre type of things, like when we were talking about guitar virtuosos. Yeah, I wouldn't give that much. I wouldn't give too much to post on that one, but I definitely appreciate that he's done work with Ozzy. He's done work with Aerosmith. I've watched interviews with him when he's talked about his love and respect for Dimebag Darrell. Like, the guy definitely has like rock roots and stuff like that. He just happened to go hip hop somewhere down the line, and that's okay too. I watched an interview with Slash one time where he was talking about Fergie. He's like, look, I got along really good with Fergie and invited her to do a song on my first solo album because she has a lot of the same hard luck stories that I do. She's a rock chick. She just happened to go pop, with her career and stuff like that. So, I definitely think that's kind of correct in like all ways. I definitely think that live is key. There's definitely value though in like the younger other genres getting involved in rock. I'm 100% with you, Bobby, when it comes to we definitely don't want to be our parents and be like, there's definitely somebody who is going to be in their basement. But for that person that's in their basement, it's definitely important for them to get out there and get forward. Angel, how's everything going with you, buddy?
Oh, great. Definitely. Kim Sullivan says she's seen Van Halen 7 times since the 80s with every singer they've had, with
Nice.
David Lee Roth the most. Star Peters has a question. What would all of your top 3 Van Halen albums be? And I can start because I've had a few minutes to think about this question.
Oh, okay.
My top 3, definitely the Fair Warning album, 5150 album, and For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. That's my top 3.
Oh, nice. I want to hear Jason's top Van Hagar album.
They made 4, so
I
that's
heart
for the
you,
top
dude.
3.
All right, no worries. No problemo. I would say that like for me, I would probably in like no particular order, I would definitely say 1984 because I've got to include that album just because I mean Hot for Teacher is still my favorite Van Halen song. So I got to include that. I would I got to go with Van Halen 1 because again you put the needle down, you've got Eruption, and then you've got fucking Running with the Devil. And then I would probably have to then kind of go Van Hagar when it comes to some stuff, just simply because um I like the songs like Why Can't This Be Love? I think Sammy brought a lot to the table when it came to his songwriting. I think it really, deserves that kind of respect. I love the fact that there were parts of it that were, that were lighter song, like lighter lyrics, that kind of stuff. So if I'm going with my top 3, that's probably the direction I would have to go in no particular order is 1984, Van Halen 1, and 5150. Mr. Dreyer, that makes your turn, sir.
First album, got to go with number 1.
Right on.
Then, I did. I love Fair Warning. I just think Fair Warning, it's a cross between the first 2 albums, Fair Warning. And then I'm kind of flipped on my first, I love 5150, thought it was great, but I love Fuck. Give me For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, which is such a great album.
Yeah.
Such, the 5150 tour was amazing, but that album just had such great songs on there too. I think Sammy really came into his own on that album.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna flip it and just ask Star Peters, what are your top 3 Van Halen albums, and What did you think about the move to Gary Sharon? Just want to ask you that question.
Yeah.
Well, I got to jump real quick. I got a major meltdown.
What's up?
I have to fix a major meltdown on a political site. They're locked.
Gotcha. All right, dude.
Later, man.
Later. One of the things that Wall Stars, and any of the fans are speaking up that they want to. I got something for you, Angel. What was your thoughts on A Different Kind of Truth? The first album with David Lee Roth in many, many moons.
I was just happy that it actually happened. I never thought I would have seen that day, because again, we got a tease in '96 with the 2 songs on the greatest hits. But I was just happy. I mean, just as a fan, it got a lot of mixed reviews that it was just old songs, but I was just happy. But I just missed Michael Anthony's contributions on that album.
Yeah.
I love that record though.
Yeah, I think the album was solid myself too. It was a weird. I liked the album. I liked I liked the first single, Tattoo. It didn't quite feel like it was weird too for me. It didn't actually feel as much like a Van Halen song as like a solo David Lee Roth song, because he came back from Japan like completely tatted up all of a sudden. So it was like it kind of seemed like that was just a David Lee Roth song that landed on a Van Halen album because he was back in the band at the time. But I mean, all in all, I do like the album. I do think it's a quality album, and I do enjoy it. It was, and it's no disrespect to Wolfie because it's by no means his fault, but it was definitely very bizarre having Wolfie in that band. While, yeah, it's nice that a band called Van Halen has 3 members named Van Halen out of 4, but they did Michael Anthony so dirty as far as, you know, releasing him from the band. At least to me, it felt like they did him really dirty. So I really would have loved to have seen that album with Michael's singing ability as well as his bass playing, because Michael's got a hell of a voice.
Yes.
That now, with the death of Eddie, I kind of feel like now we've been robbed of that. Like one more real Van Halen album.
Yeah, one more tour.
Yeah.
Star Peters named her top 3.
She did?
Van Halen 1, Women and Children first, and Fair Warning. Love the Sammy stuff, but to me, those 3 were just killer.
Nice. Damn, man. Between you, Bobby, and Star, I'm the only person on the 1984 train.
I think because it was just a very commercial album. And
True.
I think some people, they kind of love the early Van Halen stuff because that's when they were young and hungry. And I guess it was less of an ego with Roth.
Yeah, I can't really argue with those points, to be honest. I mean, because I remember hearing it. Honestly, I remember hearing an interview or just a conversation that Eddie Trunk did one time when he was talking about how he put the needle down and here's the synthesizers that open up for Jump, and he was like, "Holy fuck, what happened to Van Halen?" But the fact of the matter is Eddie was a phenomenal keyboard player. He was very good with that kind of stuff, and you know, sometimes you got to change to stay relevant. Sometimes you got to change to, you know, to escalate as like a musician and stuff like that. So, you know, it's definitely commercial. I'll give you that. Like now that I look back at, you know, as I think back on, I mean, it's still not going to change my top 3 because Hot for Teacher is just too vital a song for me. But like it, but when I look and think about Jump, and then I think about Panama, and then I think about Hot for Teacher, and then, you know, right after that, the split happens, and then you get California Girls, and you get Just Like Paradise, and you get, you know, all, you know, that kind of stuff from David's solo stuff. Yeah, I'm with you, Angel. Like I can see the commercial like disappeal that some people probably have.
I got a question for you, Jay.
I got an answer for you.
Were you hot for any of your teachers?
I was. Dude, I was, man. Dude, when it comes to women, dude, they're all for me. You know, some people like to refer to their 3 W's as the World Wide Web. I live my life off whiskey, wine, and women, baby.
So, which teachers? You don't have to name them, but like what grade?
Mostly. Oh well, I was into teachers in grade school because again I started kind of learning about girls thanks to like, you know, 80s slasher movies and glam metal videos. That's what taught me about chicks. So like I like grade school and then, you know, into like, you know, middle school and stuff like that. But to be honest, high school was when I got into the most amount of trouble lusting after my own teachers because I went to an all guys boarding school. I didn't have chicks on campus. So I was incredibly misbehaving when it came to like lusting after like certain teachers, especially like the athletic teachers and the athletic trainers. That's where I kept getting into trouble.
For me, was my fourth grade teacher. I would love getting in trouble just so teacher can see me after school.
Oh, nice. Give you a little bit of the ruler.
Jason.
Jason, you hot for teachers, baby?
Or professor.
Song is good.
You don't have to answer if you don't want to. We understand.
Oh, you're cool, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I dated a teacher.
Did you?
In my 30s.
Lame.
It still counts because she's a teacher.
Exactly. It totally counts, dude. I was like, your ex that you brought to the restaurant, that wasn't the teacher, was it?
No, I wish. Miss Thompson, if you're watching, hit me up. I'm still hot for you.
Oh, right on.
It's 30 years later, but
it's like fine wine, baby. But here, it's getting about towards that time, so we want to thank everybody. You know, if you have any final comments that you want to put up, go ahead and sling them up. That way, Angel can discuss them with us sure. But
we discussed the thoughts on the last Van Halen album, different kind of truth. Yeah.
Oh, did we get a question about that?
Yeah, Star Peters.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Star for sure. Like, yeah, so like. It was like I was saying before, in case you missed it, like in retrospect, like I dug the album. I liked the singles. I was definitely happy to have it. It was a little weird to me as far as having Wolfie on bass, where as nice as it was to have a band named Van Halen that was solidly people named Van Halen, I felt they did Michael pretty dirty as far as his removal of the band. So I think Wolfie's a great player, and I've seen him play live, and he's terrific. But now with the death of Eddie, I feel robbed that I'm definitely not going to get even one more single, let alone one more shot at maybe a Van Halen album. So that was kind of my thing on that. But you know, while we're taking any kind of last comments, I definitely want to thank all you fans again, you know, for tuning in and supporting us, you know, showing your love for Eddie. This was a special episode for us. We're going to announce our guest for next week tomorrow, so you guys don't have to wait till your typical Friday around noon for that announcement. I'll pop that out to you guys tomorrow. We're definitely excited for next week's episode. Yeah, Angel, go ahead, bud.
No, I definitely want to leave it off on a funny note from
Funny
Star
enough.
Peters. Star Peters said, all my teachers were dirty old men. None of them were hot.
That's why we all need to live in England where the drinking age is like 11. Mm-hmm. Then everybody's hot. Star, we love you. Thank you so much for being so supportive. Kim, you as well. You're fucking awesome. And all of our other regulars, you know, some may have tuned in for extended time. Some may have, you know, haven't been able to check us out today. It's all good. Definitely want to thank, you know, Dawn, Matt, you know, Bridget. We appreciate you guys all so much. You know, you guys do great. Brian is a regular.
Brian, we will work on that metal ballad.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be number one.
We can definitely do that for you, for sure. But we do appreciate you guys so much. This was a very special episode for us to do. So we really thank you for that. Allowing just
Sorry. I definitely wasn't hot for the nuns.
That's just a straight up nun.
I had to read that one. I'm sorry.
Who said that one?
Kim Sullivan.
Nice. Oh, you got it bad, so bad, but hot for none. Love it. That's fucking amazing.
Boy,
so thank you guys all so much. We'll make our guest announcement next week, tomorrow for you guys for next week's episode. I want to thank you guys so much again. You know, for Angel Alamo, for Jason Pierswig, for Bobby Dreyer, for Psycho Steve. I'm Jay. Thanks as always, Metal Summoners. We love you guys to death. Thank you as always for tuning in to your place to be on Wednesday nights. This was and always is the Metal Summit.